Good day, everyone. Eric from Helps, law firm for seniors and disabled persons. Welcome to our YouTube channel today. If you can hear me, let me know. It's always nice to know that you can hear me. Okay. Um, Good to have you here. My name's Eric. Been an attorney for 46 years, the founder of Helps. And the title for today I put down was Hope and Help for Seniors with Debt. Okay. Um, and I say hope because there's a lot of seniors that are scared and don't have hope. They think that they owe debt. They end up having to, they think they have to pay it. They get signed up with a debt management company or debt settlement company, and sometimes they're put in utter poverty making a payment they can't afford to pay. But what helps wants you to know is that there is hope, and there is help available for seniors that have debt. What helps does is we represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay in order to stop debt collectors from harassing them. There was a federal law passed in 1978 called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that provides that if you send a debt collector what's called a cease and desist letter, they have to leave you alone. They can't call or send you demand letters anymore. Also, it provides if you're represented by an attorney, then collectors can't, they have to communicate with the attorney, not you, and that's what Helps does. Before Helps was started, I probably filed 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies. And Helps was started in 2012 because seniors, they didn't need to file bankruptcy. They couldn't afford to file bankruptcy, but they had debt. If they didn't pay the debt, creditors could call them and make their lives miserable. So Helps was founded so seniors could have a law firm that would represent them to stop the collectors from bothering them. And then the number two reason was you could always have someone to call if you had a question, if you were worried or you're scared. And so that's what Helps does. We represent seniors in all 50 states who owe debt in order to stop collectors from harassing them. You know, the seniors we represent are the seniors that are lower income and poor, that don't have a lot of, they don't have enough money to take care of their needs. And for whatever reason, debt has, they're bound in debt. They have credit card debt. They have maybe loans, maybe a spouse passed away, maybe it was a divorce, maybe they helped their kids out, maybe there was illness, maybe they lost a job, all kinds of reasons. They didn't intend to get where they were, but life happened. And so when they find about Helps and they enroll in Helps, they give us the creditors they owe money to or the debt collectors, and we're going to send a cease and desist letter out to that debt collector, and they're going to leave you alone. Okay, I had a guy call me today, and he was still getting called by, he said, regional finance. And I said, well, let's look at it. Look through the file. We'd sent a letter out on July 11th, and today is the 22nd. I told him, I said, well, you know, they may have gotten the letter yet, or they may have just got, they're still processing it. So it usually takes 2 to 4 weeks before them to process a letter and stop the harassment. But I told them in the meantime, if they were to, you don't have to talk to them. If they called you and you happen to talk to them, just tell them you're represented by Helps, give them their name and number, and hang up the phone. But we don't want you to worry. That's what we're here for. And you can call us. Okay? And I like the questions. Happy says, I'm not new, but I am just listening. I don't understand why a medical bill shows up on credit reports. It was supposed to be paid through an agency that paid for seniors. Okay, so there was going to be a rule that was going to require that medical bills not be placed on credit reports, but that's been canceled. So I don't, but we don't see them being on medical report on credit reports too often. Okay. I should point out that we do have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. We don't have it, but we contract with a company to offer that to our clients. So, you know, if you need help on restoring credit, a lot of seniors don't care about it, but that program is available to you if you've been part of Helps for 90 days. Okay, so if you have a question, you know, put it in the chat feature, and I'll try to answer it. That's what we're here for. You could always ask questions later. You can always call us toll free 855-435-7787 or 855 helps US or helps us. And we've got attorneys and paralegals that are going to answer your questions. Okay. Um, so Kat asked us, your front desk as of yesterday got my third-party authorization form at 11 a.m. certified. What happens? We talked about that yesterday, but uh, it just goes in the file. We just take a copy of it, scan it, probably destroy the original. Okay. You don't, and that way, if a creditor were to call us and they said, "Well, how do we know that we represent this person to get to communicate regarding their debt?" Then we like to have that third-party authorization form that we can send to them, which says that you authorize us to talk about the debt with them. And what are we going to tell them? We're going to tell them this person's income is protected. They're getting Social Security. They're getting a pension. They can't afford to pay the debt. Leave them alone, and they will. Okay. So not to worry. So here's the first one I'm going to lead off with a guy from Wyoming. He says, a creditor is trying to sue. This is a note from one of our receptions. Says, creditors is trying to sue him and would like some assistance. Okay. So even though we may send, and you may enroll in helps, and we send a cease and desist letter out to the creditors you owe money to, does that mean that they can't sue you? No, they can still legally sue you. Okay. And it happens. But you don't need to worry. You're not going to need to go to court. Remember, your Social Security is protected. So is your pension. Social Security has been protected since the inception of Social Security in 1935. And pensions are protected under federal and state laws. They can't be taken from you. And there's another rule that was put in effect in 2012 that tells banks that they're to automatically protect twice the amount of your federal benefit deposited into a bank account. For example, Social Security, deposit in your bank account, twice the amount you get each month from garnishment without you having to do anything at all. You don't need to file paperwork. You don't need to do anything. The bank will protect that automatically, regardless of the source of funds in the account at the time of the garnishment. Now, so that means if you happen to be sued, you're not going to have to go to court. If you're a member of HELPS, you're going to let us know. We're going to write that attorney and let them know you're not going to go to court. We understand they're going to get a judgment. We're going to remind them of the protected nature of your bank account, but it doesn't matter anyway. It's still protected automatically. We're going to call you on the phone, explain to you why you don't need to go to court, why you don't need to worry. We're going to send you emails that has linked to articles and videos on this, why you don't need to worry. Now, does that mean you're going to get sued if you don't pay the debt? More likely than not, you won't be. It's possible you could be. I don't like to give a percentage anymore because if I give a percentage and it's more than that, then people get upset. Okay. But it won't matter. You're not going to need to go to the worst thing they can do is to sue you. Okay. But if they can't get anything from you, you call it your judgment proof. There's really nothing to worry about. And you can always talk to us about that. Okay. We don't want you to worry. And I say that to all. So this guy, creditor, trying to sue him and would like some assistance. Well, the assistance we're going to give him is assuring him that he's going to be okay. And if he doesn't want to have to deal with the creditors, he can enroll in helps. We'll send letters to the people he owe money to. We'll send a letter to the attorney that sued him, and so he doesn't need to worry. Okay. So Richard says, I had a Discover card, defaulted, also have Capital One cards, all on time. No word for many months. Just saw Capital One has filed suit for Discover card last Thursday, but I haven't been notified yet. Yeah, so if you get sued, how'd you get notified? Well, different ways. Oh, there's sometimes a bankruptcy attorney will subscribe to a service that lets them know if someone got sued, and they'll send an advertisement letter out to you, saying, "Hey, you've been sued. You need our help. Contact us." It's a way to drum up bankruptcy business. And sometimes you might get one, two, three, or four, or five, six of these letters, depending on where you live and how many bankruptcy attorneys are active in the practice where you live. So you're probably going to eventually get served with a paper. If you're a member of HELPS, you get us a copy of that paperwork. When you get served, we usually need the first 2 or 3 pages. They'll need everything, and we're going to contact the attorney, let them know that your income is protected, and we're going to let you know why you don't need to worry. So you don't need to worry. Um, so Tweeter asks questions. Eric, so medical debt can be placed on credit reports now. That will kill seniors disabled who are struggling. You know, I don't know that it will kill you. You know, figuratively, literally, of course, it won't. It may have a impact on your credit. One reason they were going to stop reporting the credit reports is that medical debt was a very poor reflection on a person's credit worthiness. So they said, we're just going to cut it out altogether. And they may eventually do that. But once again, I don't see medical debts reporting on credit too often. Unless it's turned over to a collection agency, then they may report it. But you know, you've already heard me explain that we have a program in helps called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score available to our clients who have been part of helps for more than 90 days where you can rebuild your credit. It's possible to rebuild your credit. Okay. Diane asks, there is no situation where you may have to appear in court. It's a terrible question to ask me, Diane. Okay. Well, of course, you could envision a scenario where you might have to go to court, but I don't like to talk about that because some people will worry when they don't need to worry. So let me talk about that. Okay. Um, if someone gets a judgment against you, it's possible they could have you come in for some type of supplemental proceeding. You know, that happens very rarely with one of our clients. If it does, the clients get us the paperwork. You know, we go over the client. We try to contact the attorney that's asked for the client to come into court, usually to be asked questions about their assets. And 19 out of 20 times we're able to resolve that where the attorney drops it because, you know, we get them the information. They realize that there's nothing they can do to collect this person. It's a waste of our time to go to court. So they drop it. But yeah, there could be a situation where you need to go to court. But it's so rare that I don't like people to worry about things that are so unlikely. Okay. And if it were to happen, then we'd know what to do. Okay. But you can always call. That's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for. So I was teasing you when I said that was a bad question. It's a good question, but I'm going to answer it honestly in that, you know, it's just not that necessary. It's not that often that that's going to be necessary. Now, a lot of people, they get served with a summons or complaint, and it may say a specific court date and time, and they think, I have to go to court. But if you read it carefully, that's only if you're going to contest the lawsuit. If you're not going to fight the lawsuit, then you don't need to do anything. They'll just get a judgment and a story. Now, if you contest the lawsuit and you owe the money, you're probably eventually going to owe the money because you're going to lose the lawsuit. But so for that reason, it's really not necessary to go to court. But you can call us with your questions. That's what we're here for. And we've got lots of videos where we talk about this. Okay? Ms. HS, after the statute of limitations, 5 years where I live in your state, the creditor can still sue you and contact you for a debt. Uh, well, if they were to do that after the statute of limitations, they'd be violating the law. That's like saying, you know, Eric, can you prevent me from being mugged if I go to the store? No, I can't. You're not unlikely you're going to be, but if that happened, then we tell you what to do. It just doesn't happen. Okay, statute of limitations has different meanings, but in the lawsuit world for debt, it means there's a certain amount of time, usually 3, 4, 5 years, maybe 6 years, where a creditor has a chance to sue you to get a judgment saying that you owe a debt. And it's usually from the date when the debt was incurred or when you last made a payment on the debt. Now, if it's beyond the statute of limitations, legally they cannot sue you. And if they did, they'd be violating the law and there'd be a counterclaim against them. But they could still call to try to collect the debt after the statute of limitations. And sometimes they do that. Not very often, but occasionally they do. Remember, the whole purpose of helps, if you have a question in this area, you pick up the phone and you call us, no matter how often. Okay? And you're right, Sunset. They can renew a judgment normally, in different states have rules on how to renew a judgment. They have to do it. They can renew it for another 10 years, or maybe they can renew it in perpetuity, or it depends on the state. But once again, if they can't collect from any if they can't collect from you, if you're judgment proof, it doesn't matter if they renew it. You're not going to have to pay it. You don't need to worry about it. Okay? Yeah, you're right, Treaty Birds. They turn over to debt collectors and they can report it on your credit report. But once again, there's a way to get that corrected. I mean, there's a way to reestablish your credit if you're that senior that wants to do that. You can rebuild your credit. Okay? Diane says, now that I know it's unlikely, I won't worry. That's right. And then you can think yourself, if it were to happen, then you're going to call us. I'm going to tell you what to do, and you're not going to have to worry then. Okay? Mary asks, how long after the have been served with a suit will the court case be on the agenda if they get a judgment will it go on my home? So we ask a lot of we get a lot of questions. We answer the questions here. It helps some of them. You've heard the answers before, which is great because we have new people all the time listening to this channel. Um, so it depends on the state. If you get served with a summons and complaint, someone will knock on your door. It could be a sheriff's deputy. It could be someone else. And the sheriff's deputy isn't the guy that arrests you. He's the guy that his job is to serve papers, and that's all he does. He may have the uniform on, he may have the car, but you're not going to jail. Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with that at all, at all. Most counties they have a sheriff's deputy that's assigned to serve legal papers. He's not arresting people. Okay, and that's what they do. And so they'll serve you papers, and it's going to give you a certain amount of time to file an answer. It depends. It might be small claims. It might be only 14 days. If it's regular court, it might be 30 days. It could be longer. Depends. So, and if you do nothing, they can get a judgment. And what's the impact of a judgment on your home? Mary wants to know. Depends on the state where you live. Some states, a judgment will not become a lien on your home. In other states, it can become a lien on your home. In some states where it's a lien on your home, it doesn't mean anything because there's still a provision where you can sell your home and have the judgment lien removed. Texas and Florida is a good example. But if they get a judgment lien, they're not going to take your home. That just doesn't happen for a number of reasons. Why is that? Well, first off, every state virtually has what's called exemption laws that protect a certain amount of equity in property. And one of them is called a homestead exemption. The state will protect maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000, 250,000. California is like 700,000. It depends of equity in a home that's protected. If your person were to file bankruptcy, that's protected. But even if you have equity in a home over and above the exemption where the state where you live, like I said, it's not the practice of a consumer judgment creditor like a credit card to ever take any steps to try to take your home. Now, it may become a lien, but let's say you own the home together as a husband and wife, and the judgment's against the husband. And if the husband passes away before the wife, then the property goes to the wife, the judgment lien disappears. A judgment is only a lien on property that you own. And if you don't own the property anymore and you die, boom, the judgment lien disappears. It's not going to be an issue. There's things that we go over that with people. So don't worry about losing your home. Farmhouse asks, Bank of America got a judgment on me, but it ordered me to make weekly payments to the law firm. Well, no. I don't care who it orders you to. If your income is protected, Social Security no one can order you to make weekly payments. I think I talked yesterday about someone said that a judge said to make payments of $35 a month. Judge can't legally make you do that. No way. It's up to the attorney who got the judgment to try to collect from you by trying to garnish your bank account or something like that. A judge cannot force you to make a payment for money that you have that is protected. Okay? They can, judge doesn't have any. All a judge does is he decides you owe the money. There's a judgment. Now it's up to the creditor or the collector who you owe the money. It's up to them to try to collect on the debt. Now the judge could order you come into court because the attorney that you owe the debt to, that law firm wants you to answer questions. Judge could order you come to court, but the judge has anything to do with trying to force you to pay that debt. You don't need to worry about that. Okay. Okay. How can we find out what the specific law is in our state uh, that sets the time clock for how long Fair has initiated a lawsuit? You can probably search it on the internet, Google it. Okay. But generally, the rule is uh, from the date the debt was incurred or the date you last made a payment. Okay. So that means, let's say it's a 5-year statute of limitations, and it's been 4 years and 11 months since you incurred the debt. And now all of a sudden you made a payment. Well, that means they've got another 5 years to collect. Okay. So Bradley asked, I was on a payment plan for back taxes with the state of North Carolina. I had auto payments set up with my debit card. The payments were going regular. Then my debit got frozen due to some fraud. So the bank issued me a new card number. The payment withdrawal stopped. I have yet to receive any notice from North Carolina Department of Revenue. Now, several months, have they given up on me? I have no assets in the state. Or, oh, I love this question, Bradley. One of my favorite questions. Okay. The law that protects your Social Security and your pension from a debt collector, Bank of America, U.S. Bank, Discover, anyone that sues you, that law protects your income, and it's protected in your bank account. Also protects your income from a state revenue agent. A state cannot garnish your Social Security, nor can they garnish your pension or your VA benefit or your IRA or your 401k. And it's protected in your bank account. Twice the amount of your federal benefit in your bank account is protected from garnishment by the North Carolina Department of Revenue. So losing that card did you a favor. You don't have to pay them anymore. And if they call you on the phone, just say, I'm sorry, I can't afford to pay it. Now, is the North Carolina Department of Revenue going to tell you that your income is protected? Probably not. I mean, they definitely won't. I mean, they could, but you know, they're trying to collect money from you, and a lot of these states may not tell the senior the fact that their income is protected. So you don't need to worry about it. You can call us with questions, okay? You've heard me talk about my state. I'm not living in Oregon right now, but in my old state of Oregon, um, I got a law passed in the legislature there because the state revenue, Department of Revenue, was garnishing seniors' bank accounts and wasn't letting them know that their income was protected. And so there was a law that was put into place that made the Department of Revenue inform seniors about their protected income and went to an extra length to protect seniors from garnishment by the state for taxes that they owe. Okay, that law should be in effect in other states as well. Needs to be. Some states are more aggressive about it than other states. In some states, they don't have very much in state taxes. But if you owe a state tax and your income is Social Security or a pension, you don't have to pay it. Now, they could file a tax lien, uh, but they're not going to foreclose on your property. I don't see that happening. Okay, that's not going to happen. So I hope that answered your question, Bradley. So in a lot of ways, that was a good thing happened. You don't have to worry about paying it anymore. So what do they do if they call you? Just tell them, hey, I'm on Social Security, I'm pension, can't afford to pay you guys anymore. And you don't have to give them permission to take. The reason they took money out of your account, you gave them permission to do that. And you don't have to do that. So here's one. This guy calls us from Georgia. That's all he wrote. He says, I need as much help as I could get. God bless and thank you. I need as much help as I can get. That's all he says. Well, he's going to get help from Helps. If he calls us, when you call Helps, we're going to ask you a bunch of questions. We're going to ask you where you live. Are you married? Are you single? Uh, what state do you live in? We're not going to ask your address or things like that, at least not yet. And how'd you find out about us? Are you buying a home or are you renting? Are you buying a car? Do you own a car? How much do you owe on the home? What's the home worth? Has anyone sued you? Do you owe any income taxes? Do you owe any student loans, child support? How much in debt you think you owe? Credit cards, medical bills. Then we're going to read you a little script about what we do and go over your situation, sum it up, explain to you why you're going to be okay and why you don't need to worry. So that's what we do. So this guy in Georgia, we're going to help him. There really isn't too many seniors that we can't help. Very few. I just can't think of any scenario. I mean, we're going to tell you, the attorneys that work for Helps, we've been in practice for a number of years. We're not just out of law school. Some of us have filed bankruptcies in the thousands, been working in this area for decades. So we know what the law is, and then we know what happens in the real world. So you're going to get straight advice. Okay. We're not going to try to mislead you. That's the problem with the internet. A lot of help for seniors that have debt. A lot of people out there talking about things they have no idea what they're talking about. I read these articles for seniors in debt, and sometimes I just want to pull my hair out. It's like someone read something, or they just got out of just graduated from school in journalism, and now they're an expert in writing, and they become an expert in debt for seniors. All they do is they read some article and then they copy what that person wrote, and they just spread the misinformation, spread it around. Brian says, I finally stopped looking at the civil court calendar last week. So what is Brian saying? He says, well, nowadays with the internet, you can check in most counties in the United States. You can look up your name and see your court all the lawsuits against you from 100 years ago up to the current date will be there, and it'll show you if you've been sued. Now, don't do that. It's a waste of time. Okay? Just don't do that. I don't want you to worry about things you don't need to worry about. Worry about your grandkids or your kids or your neighbor. Okay? Watch out for them. Don't worry about that loss because it doesn't matter. They can't do anything to you. Is the new Direct Express card from protected? Is it better to have than a bank account? That's another great question, Rich. One I've dealt with many times. So I've been doing this long enough that once in a while I will meet someone and I'll say to myself, this guy probably doesn't want to have a bank account. Maybe they had a bunch of NSF check charges in it over and over and over again. And the nice thing about a Direct Express card is that it's like your Social Security goes direct on a debit card, and so if there's no money in there, you're not going to get the money. Okay, so you can have an NSF charge with a Direct Express card, which is kind of nice. And so you ask, is it better to have than a bank account? It depends. If that's the only money you're getting is on Social Security, it could be a good way to go. Now, the only negative thing about it is, maybe your landlord you can't pay your rent with a debit card. Okay, so you'd have to get a money order to pay your rent. And you can draw cash out of that just a certain number of times a month. So there may be some restrictions, but there won't be any bank fee, which is nice with the Direct Express card. No bank fee. Yeah, Social Security is doing away with actually mailing checks. I hardly ever, I can't remember talking to anyone, at least recently, where they ever got a Social Security check in the mail. And I guess those few that are, they're going to do away with those. As we get older and more of us are inclined towards computers and cell phones and know how to handle money electronically, it's going to be a lesser need for checks. So here's someone from Oklahoma, and it says, I just received a summons related to a Wells Fargo credit card that I used and paid for approximately 17 years. I'm trying to skip to the important part. Okay, when they moved, they looks like they're going to take care of their grandkids. And my husband went to Social Security to conduct some business. They offered to fund us approximately $1,500 per child per month. And they started getting that. It turned out that it was school related, so as soon as each child graduated from high school, the funding ended. Yeah, when they get to be a certain age, then it ends. Yeah. And they were able to get it extended until they were 21. And it looks like they're going to be losing the last of the funding. And then Social Security is going to be going down when these kids are now old enough that it's going to stop. But both daughters still live with them. Um, there are other credit cards that we had to stop paying on because we have to have our pay. We cannot afford to pay for. We were both 73-year-olds and worked all of our adults. So I guess what they're worried about is their income is going to go down. They told a big long story. Now their income is going down and they can't afford to pay the credit card debt anymore. They have to pay their time they pay for their mortgage, utilities, gas, help their kids. They don't have any money left over. They're 73 years old. So all their income, Social Security or pension, whatever it is protected. They could stop paying their credit card debt. If they enroll in helps, they're going to give us the creditors whom they owe money to. We're going to send a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave them alone. They're going to be our clients ongoing. So if they ever have a question, or if they're worried or scared, they can pick up the phone and call. So they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. If you're there, if you're that person that has debt you're struggling with and don't know what to do, don't hesitate to call us. You know, um, I don't think I talked to anyone that's sorry they talked to us. They're very thankful. If anything, I hear stories, oh, I wish I would have heard about you sooner. It would have made life so much easier if I knew about you sooner. So when you talk to us, we're kind, we're going to be nice. We don't turn anyone away that needs our help. Okay? That's what we do. And you can tell from the comments on our videos and stuff and what we do. We're legitimate. We do what's right by our clients. So Jimmy says, I gave up worrying about anything financial since joining Helps, and I managed to save a lot of money. Probably a lot less worry too, Jimmy. Hi, how about filing bankruptcy in New Jersey, Chapter 7? I'm a senior and recently lost my job. I have bank cards coming after me. You could file bankruptcy. I don't know the facts. I'll talk. I filed 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies for people before starting Helps. Helps was started uh, because a lot of seniors didn't need to file bankruptcy. The vast majority didn't need to file bankruptcy. Don't need to file bankruptcy, and they couldn't afford to file bankruptcy. The cost $2,000 to $3,000, and plus going through all the heartache and headache of going to court and all that kind of stuff. They didn't need to file bankruptcy. Um, and then sometimes filing bankruptcy can be like Brer Rabbit getting to the briar patch. Once you file Chapter 7, you're in it, and you might have maybe have an asset that's worth. Maybe you have equity in a home that's worth more than the homestead exemption in the state where you live. Well, if you filed a Chapter 7, then the trustee could say, well, listen, I'm going to take your home and sell it and use the money and pay you your homestead exemption and use the rest of the money to pay your creditors. That's not what you bargained for when you filed the Chapter 7. So maybe the attorney says, well, you can't do a Chapter 7. We're going to have to do a Chapter 13, which requires you to make monthly payments for 3 to 5 years to pay your creditors. Whereas if you do nothing, if a creditor sues you, gets a job, and they're not going to take you home, so for a lot of reasons, bankruptcy just isn't necessary for a lot of seniors. We're not scared to refer someone or tell someone when they need to file bankruptcy, but it just isn't that often that that's going to be necessary. Can you help someone that has, Carol asked, can you help someone that has a debt with an original creditor? Absolutely, yes. So uh, when you enroll in helps, you give us the creditors you owe money to and debt collectors. It doesn't matter if they're original creditor or not. There's at least 7 states that take the Federal Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and applies it to original creditors as well. But it is the practice of an original creditor. If they get a cease and desist letter, they're going to stop calling you. Okay. Normally they're going to do that. They're going to stop calling you. Now they may still send you a bill, but they're going to start leaving you alone. So no, it doesn't matter. If we have five people that call us, maybe 1 out of 5 is being sued. 4 or 5 maybe 3 or 4 out of the 5 are behind in the payments and being harassed. And maybe 1 out of 5 is completely current on everything. And so they don't have a debt collector. They have an original creditor. So it doesn't matter who you are. You can enroll in helps at any stage. You don't have to wait till you're behind and being harassed by creditors to enroll in helps. I worry about people that are worried. Worry causes health issues, so I worry for them. Yeah, I guess maybe I'm the same way, but I don't like to dwell on it. Okay, I'm laughing at the guy. This treaty bird says he tried to pay the doctor with cash, and they said no, we don't accept cash. Oh, well, someday that'll probably be the case. We haven't gotten quite there yet, but maybe that doctor is ahead of the times. So I pulled our credit report on Credit Karma. Nothing is there. Our medical debt's removed. I thought it was only under $500. It looks like. Yeah, that was the rule. That was going to be if it was under, I think $500 or whatever it was. But then they've rescinded that rule. But like I said earlier, it's not all that common for credit providers to report to, I mean, medical debts, medical creditors to report to the credit reporter, negative entries on your credit report. It might happen if it gets turned over to a collection agency, though. So Kathy says, I've decided that these credit card companies just sit back and wait until you get comfortable and not so worried, and then they pick your name out of the hat and hit you with a lawsuit. I don't know if it's quite like that, but it may seem that way, Kathy. But once again, it doesn't matter, right? They can't really do anything to you. Okay. If the lawsuit, Mary asks, if the law firm that initiated the suit decides not to proceed, how will I be notified? So Mary brings out a good point. It's not uncommon um, for a client to let us know that they got a letter dismissing the lawsuit. And a lot of times that's after we send a cease and desist letter, or we send a letter to an attorney that sued one of our clients, letting him know that our client's income is Social Security. The attorney maybe figures, oh, this isn't worth our effort. They just dismiss the lawsuit. Okay? Doesn't always happen, but it does happen. And that, I think that's nice. It doesn't really matter because they can't do anything to you anyway, but it's always nice, I guess. How will you be notified? You'll get a notice. You'll get a notice dismissal uh, without prejudice, which means technically they could sue you again. Now, they're not going to do that, but there's two ways of dismissing the lawsuit. They could dismiss it with prejudice, means they can't sue you again, or without prejudice, means they could sue you again. Guess maybe they think if they do it without prejudice, if all of a sudden your ship comes in and they find out about it, then they could sue you again. But they're not going to sue you again. Debt collectors definitely, Ryan says, leave you alone with helps. They do. However, I still have to return the client authorization form. Yeah, you do. When you enroll, we send you that form. Uh, if you forget about it, we're not going to kick you out of the program. It's just, and we don't need it all the time. Occasionally, we might need it. That's why we ask for that. And that form just lets you sign a form that we can take a copy of and send to a creditor if they ask us, how do we know that you represent this person? You sign saying we're authorized to represent you regarding communication about this debt. That's only the extent of our representation. Um, does the attorney have to come to court for a debtor's exam? Oh, I hate those questions about debtor's exams because it's unlikely going to happen, Joey. But yeah, the attorney is the one to be asked the questions. If and when that were to ever happen, someone has to get a judgment, and you got served with a paper asking to come into court to answer questions. We try to get a hold of the attorney and ask them if they'll consider waiving that because our client's income is protected. It's a waste of time. Okay. Okay. So this person contacts us from Arizona. I'm writing to respectfully explain my current situation. 62 years old, living on fixed income, a little bit of Social Security, and a part-time employment, self-employment. And I've been struggling with health condition for many years, which has limited my ability to work. After paying for rent, groceries, and other basic living costs, I am left with little or no extra income. I'm seeking legal advice and support to resolve the debt collection issues I am facing with Discover Bank. I plan to attend the pretrial call with Discover Bank. Although I agreed to payment plan with Wells Fargo, I'm unable to afford it. I only agreed to the plan to avoid further legal action. Additionally, I intend to reach out to US Bank. You don't need to do that. I mean, you owe the money. If you owe the money, you don't need to do anything. They can't touch your Social Security. They're not going to be able to touch your self-employment income. If you do nothing, they simply get a judgment. You're judgment proof. Okay. If you go, you can go if you want. If you don't owe the money, if you want to challenge it, or if you just like challenging things, or if you like going to court and standing in front of judges and attorneys, you can do it. Don't have to. Do nothing, they're just going to get a judgment. So what? You're judgment proof. They can't do anything to you. And we got lots of videos that talk about this, articles, emails with articles from helps. But once again, if one of our clients gets sued, we're going to contact the attorney, let them know you're not going to go to court, that your money's protected, and pretty much put them on notice that they're not going to get anything from you. So they don't, and then we're going to remind you over and over again why you don't need to worry, why you don't need to go to court. So Eastlake says, judgment was taken against us. I know our income is safe. What if somewhere down the line we receive inheritance? My husband's mom is 96, just not sure how to handle if that happens. Well, if that were to happen, you'd call us, we'd tell you what to do. Probably not going to have to worry about paying the debt. It depends on the facts. Yeah, and then maybe if you win the lottery, you get a whole lot of money, then you can always pay these creditors if you want, or you can offer them something to settle. You don't need to do that. We normally tell people don't bother doing that because the amount of money you probably need that, whatever money you're going to get to help support yourself in your older years. After all, your husband's mom lived to 96, so you're going to need that money. Brian says, the debtor's exam is all I was really worried about. It is a nasty word. It is. And I know Eric hates it. I hate it because I don't want people to be scared when they don't need to be. Okay. If we don't need to worry, then why do we need help? You don't. If you believe me, and you know, uh, when I first started helps, okay, back in 2012, I would go to meetings and stuff with seniors, and I'd ask how many know that your Social Security is protected. Very few of them did. Okay. Um, and then I talked to seniors, and I used to say, well, okay, if I had 50 seniors in the room, you know, and I tell them their income was protected, you know, they still wanted to be part of helps, but maybe 1 out of 50, and he'd be just this stubborn old codger. When he finally realized that they couldn't do anything, he'd say, well, I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I don't care. So if you're that pale face, if you're that stubborn old codger, and you don't need us. No, you don't worry about it. But a lot of people still worry. They don't have to deal with the court. They're not. So that's what we're here for. And that's the one thing about helps is our help is ongoing. It's not just one time. You normally go to an attorney, you pay him some money, and he's your attorney to solve a specific problem. Then you're done with him. But with helps, you're our client literally forever. And I have to tell people not to worry over and over again because it's just. I mean, I don't want to tell people to worry when they don't have to worry. Okay, that's the reason why. So this person contacts us. I just noticed a court case against me with one of the cards I had to stop paying. Looks like the clerk of the court is sending a registered letter to me tomorrow. I'm retired, trying to live off of 2,600 in Social Security. Would this be something you may be able to help me with? And my monthly expenses are $2,800. Well, whatever. Yeah, of course we can help him with this. If he has other debt, if he's paying other debt, he doesn't need to pay this lawsuit. He doesn't pay any of those creditors. This is the kind of person we help. So, John, a question like that about selling your property for the price of the property taxes and having rent it back to you. I mean, that could be something to look at. Maybe it depends on the facts and who you sell it to, and whatever. Okay. You can always call us with questions. We don't give legal advice. It helps. We give legal information. Okay, be clear on that. Give legal information because the stuff we talk about is really basic stuff. The person contacts us from Texas. Good afternoon. I'm inquiring on my mother's behalf. She does have some unsecured debt. no assets, and only income is Social Security and small pension. I'd like to get some information about what options she would have. We talk to a lot of sons or daughters that are watching out for their mom and dad, and we're happy to do that. And we talk to a lot of parents that, and I suggest, would you like me to have one? Would you like to include one of your kids on this phone call? And a lot of times they want to do that. So yeah, we're happy to talk to a family together. So in this case, the guy from Texas, um, mom has unsecured debt. Her income is Social Security and pension is protected. She doesn't need to pay it. If she doesn't want to be harassed by creditors, she can enroll in helps. We're going to send letters to out her creditors, and they're going to leave her alone. Okay, and we can work through the sun to get that accomplished. So this person contacts us from Michigan. I'm 69-year-old senior and have medical issues for the past 4 years and was not working, only part-time, on and off. So unfortunately, I racked up credit card debt. I draw Social Security and work part-time, driving self-employed. With all the medicine and regular insurance payments, health, car, phone, housing, I don't have any extra funds to pay all the credit card bills. Now a process server came to the house to serve me with a summons, but I was not home. If I had the money, I would file for bankruptcy, but I don't. So see if you can help me out. You probably don't need to file for bankruptcy because your income is protected. Now, you're self-employed. No one, even if they get a judgment, they're not going to come after your self-employment income. They can't touch your Social Security. You're going to be fine. Anyone listening to me, if you got any of the problems that we've talked about here today, be sure and call us. We'll be glad to go over this with you. Sometimes people call us 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Never any pressure. And at some point you decide you want our help, you can enroll. We do it over the phone. We push a button, you'll get an email from us that says welcome to helps, and you'll be our client immediately. That way when we hang up the phone, if a creditor were to call you, you tell you're represented by helps. If they call us, you're going to be in our system as being our client. We're going to say, yeah, we represent this person. They can't pay you. We're sending you a cease and desist letter. Don't bother them anymore. Okay? And then you can always call us with questions. Yeah, someone asked me the other day, Brian says, if you applied for a card or something, if you're worried that maybe you inflated your income, is that going to get you in trouble? No, it's not going to get you in trouble. I would suspect that 98% of or 95% of credit applications have errors on them. If the error was probably going to be that the person reported they have more income then it's not going to cause a problem. Okay, it's not going to be an issue. What about medical bills? This guy asked, what about medical bills? I just went through a lot and paid what I can. Well, it doesn't matter. Your income is protected from credit cards, payday loans, repossessed car, you name it, including a medical bill. Can't be taken from you. You're going to be okay. Okay. Oh, so I'll close with this. This was a comment on a video that we did with senior living. But Dodge, the Department of Government Efficiency, is in charge of Social Security. So is the Trump administration going to change that? I see this video was made 4 months ago, and the savings are assets and wages are used against you when you apply for SNAP, housing, and everything else out there that Trump administration is working on taking away. Is this protection untouchable by them? I don't think so. Wouldn't your credit score plummet, making it impossible to obtain financial assistance in the form of a loan, a high interest line of credit, and credit cards? Then you would only have your income, which isn't sufficient for sustainable living under this administration. Well, okay. So here's my answer that I wrote this morning. Social Security is not going away, plain and simple. I don't care who the president is. It's not going anywhere. Don't ask me to expound on that because it's not going anywhere. Okay, and then Section 8 qualifications for housing choice is primarily based on income, not assets. While assets are considered during the application process to determine overall income and eligibility, the main factor determining qualification is a family's annual gross income and family size. So if you have a lot of assets that generate income, that income is a factor, but not your assets. In regards to credit, many seniors are faced with the choice of having enough money for food, medicine, and utilities, or keeping current on the debt they can't afford to pay. So this person who made this comment saying, gee, if you enroll in helps, your credit goes bad. Uh, you're not going to have credit. Well, okay, what do you want? I mean, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Go ahead and pay the debt, and then you're going to go without food or medicine or heat or your basic needs. Some seniors just simply don't have a choice but to let the credit go back. But remember, you can get your credit back if you're determined to do that. We have a program for seniors called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score where you can do that. Okay, so I've come to the end. It's Tuesday on the 22nd. Uh, uh, it looks like we have one more exciting question, maybe two. Can the collection agency do a bank freeze? Not currently working, but receiving collection letter. Well, listen to the beginning of this video, AMA. Okay, I talk about that. No, they can't. Twice the amount of your Social Security is protected in your bank account by your bank from garnishment, regardless of what funds are in there or where they came from. So someone would have to have a judgment against you if they garnish your bank account. Your bank will automatically protect twice the amount of what you get in federal benefits, such as Social Security, even if some of the money in your account came from some other source. Okay? Um, can the IRS seize my Social Security and military pension for non-payment of Social Security or of taxes? IRS could do an offset of 15% of your Social Security. I've never seen them ever touch military pension. But if you're modest or lower income, you can qualify for what's currently not collectible status with the IRS and not have to pay the taxes. So we talk about that a lot. And so if you have a specific question on that, you be sure and call helps. If you're paying income taxes and you're modest or lower income or poor, you probably don't need to pay them. I've already explained why your state tax, you don't have to worry about the state taxes. That includes the IRS. You can stop paying them and you can get on currently not collectible status. You may not even need to do that. So thanks for participating today. It looks like we had a lot of, please press the like button and please subscribe to our channel. I would like to see our subscriptions go up a little bit higher. The more people that press the like button, that make comments, that subscribe to our channel, the more Google puts this out in space and people find out about us. Number one reason seniors find out about helps is because of these YouTube videos that we do. Okay, they hear this channel and so many of them call and they say, "Oh, I never knew about this. I wish I'd known about it sooner." So you can help in that regard by pressing like, by subscribing to our channel, also by sharing what helps does with others. So see you tomorrow at the same time. God bless. Have a wonderful day. Bye.